Okay, let's get going. Hello, everyone. Thanks for joining us today. My name is Jason Larson, and I'm the head of content and marketing here at the International Institute for Analytics. And I'm your host for today's session. And welcome to today's webinar, Getting the Business to Use AI Lessons from Pella's Agentic Journey. In case you're new to the International Institute for Analytics, or IIA, we are an independent, strategic, outcome-focused data and analytics assessment and advisory firm. We help data, analytics, and AI leaders diagnose high-risk gaps in their programs, justify investments, and execute on custom roadmaps that drive alignment, adoption, and ROI. Visit our homepage for more information about who we are and how we support data and analytics leaders in making the difficult and necessary transition to advanced analytics and AI. All right, before we get started on the presentation, a few housekeeping items. First, based on feedback from our community, we're starting a new series called Signal Without the Noise. The content and discussions in this series is for data analytics and AI leaders who want to share best practices on the harder leadership challenges, building trust, navigating culture, fostering communities, and harvesting and communicating value, to name a few topics. Ryan Sousa, II expert and former CDAO of Seattle Children's Hospital, is kicking this series off on July 7th with a discussion about challenging the status quo and building energy around a better path forward. Sousa will briefly level set the topic, and then we'll plan to open it up for audience Q&A and candid conversation. This session will be 45 minutes long, so follow the registration link in chat, and we look forward to seeing you there. Also, follow the link in chat if you've yet to check out our new 30-day enterprise analytics and AI baseline assessment. Leaders are using it to quickly and thoroughly quantify their maturity, reveal hidden failure points, and act on a tailored roadmap that is in their hands in 30 days. We've had recent conversations where leaders are looking at the baseline for 2H planning against annual goals, which may be of interest to you. And finally, we'd like to extend a free 30-minute follow-on consultation with an II expert for data and analytics leaders attending this session who are new to IIA. Use the QR code on the screen or the link in chat to schedule this free 30-minute consultation. A member of our team, Jack Taylor, will help schedule that call. If you are currently an IIA client, don't hesitate to reach out to the team to facilitate expert conversations as part of your service. A recorded version of this webinar and slides will be available after the presentation. And, we really strongly encourage audience participation for these sessions. Don't hesitate to share comments and questions to everyone via the chat window, or you may submit questions through the Q&A feature in Zoom if you like. And to get us warmed up, let's start with this question for the group as I introduce Jacey. How quickly are you investing into AI? Are you using a wait and see approach? Is it cautious? Is it aggressive? How quickly are you investing into AI at the enterprise level? Be curious to see, how everyone is approaching it. And I think it would nicely tee up some of what Jacey is going to be discussing. Okay, we are delighted to welcome Jacey Heuer as our featured speaker today. Jacey leads AI, data science, and advanced analytics for Pella Corporation. Pella is one of North America's largest manufacturers of premium windows and doors, and we're proud to call Pella a client of IIA's. Pella has received a number of recognitions and awards tied to their innovative culture. Notably in 2025, they won the AI Breakthrough of the Year award for their agentic AI system called AI Maintenance Doctor. And Jacey will share more about that agentic system shortly. IIA is a strategic advisory partner for Pella on their key data, analytics, and AI initiatives. Pella has tapped into our expert network to help refine and communicate their data strategy, to revitalize their data governance program, to map out their AI talent strategy, and scale their agentic AI program. Jacey brought a few slides with them to give an overview of Pella's AI journey, and then the two of us will have a deeper discussion about that journey. As we discuss Pella's journey, please, again, don't hesitate to share your comments and questions to everyone in the chat window, and you also may submit questions through the Q&A feature in Zoom. We'll do our best to pick up questions as we go along in the conversation, and we will also reserve some time at the end of the session for Q&A. We're really curious to hear everybody else's experiences in their AI efforts. Okay, so with that said, JC, I will turn it over to you, my friend, and we will get going.
All right. Thank you, Jason. I appreciate it. Just a quick check. I'm sharing my screen. Jason, you can see the right content. Perfect. Good. Well,
Yep.
good morning, good afternoon, everyone, depending on where you're at. I am, as Jason mentioned, I'm Jacey Heuer. I lead AI at Pella. So my bit of content to start today, I've got three targets that I want to take us all through to begin with. So first, a little bit more on the who and the what of Pella. And a bit of the proof points around some of the agentic AI that we've been deploying out into our organization and driving real value to the enterprise, to customers, to shareholders, and so on. So we'll start there. I'll roll into then a bit of an anchoring around our expectations of AI capabilities, what's real now, where it's going. This informs our strategic decisions and how we're thinking about that journey. Skate to where the puck is going is kind of the mantra certainly built into that. And I'll carry that into a framework for how we're embracing the intelligence that we have now, knowing that it's only going to improve as we go forward and improve on a continued exponential of capability is the expectation. So those are the targets. So Pella Corporation is one of the largest manufacturers of windows and doors in the United States. We have over 20 manufacturing sites across the country, over 10,000 employees. Just last year, we celebrated the century mark as an organization. We're now on year 101 right now, and we're headquartered in Pella, Iowa, which is about 40 or so minutes southeast of Des Moines, Iowa. If you're familiar with your state capitals, Des Moines is the capital of Iowa um, as well. One, I think, good point to emphasize on the uniqueness of Pella. Pella is a large volume custom manufacturer. So for any given unit that we produce, there's something like 8 octillion possible combinations of attributes and features that can go into that unit. So for how simple a window or a door is, it's highly complex. The supply chain and value stream and manufacturing and creation of a window and door, which creates a great challenge for the application of AI to help optimize and drive value through all of it as well. So I think it's a unique perspective on why AI is so important and impactful to Pella. It's to help handle that complexity. A few proof points of our AI journey at Pella. First is our Agentic AI maintenance doctor. And so what this is we've deployed this to the majority of our plants. Effectively, when a piece of machinery or equipment goes down in a plant, the operator can use their mobile device to scan a QR code. When they scan that QR code, it triggers the agents to go and do an initial deep review of that machine's health history. Comes back to the operator with a handful of questions, Q&A, not much different than when you go and see a human doctor yourself and have that dialogue up front. The doctor's gathering some more knowledge on your history. That's what the first part of this agentic system is doing. Gathers more context, and then it goes and builds a deeper diagnostic on what the issue is, prescribes the fix, identifies the parts that are needed out of inventory, and sends all that over to our maintenance tech, who then takes that and goes and executes on fixing that piece of machinery or equipment. Across the fleet, across our plants that are using this, which is right now 16 of the 20 plants that we have in our ecosystem, we're seeing significant uptime in machine availability, as well as the through line to impacting directly our key metrics around on-time delivery and completion and so on as part of the customer experience. So it's been a significant win from an AI standpoint and a real impact on the organization as well. Second proof point I've got is agentic AI for our data transformation. So like many, we're going through a very large modernization of our core technologies. This is our ERP, our engineering software, PLM software, software for pricing and configuration and quoting, and more is at the core of this. And so it's ultimately an effort to go from the old to the new, which historically that's a many year journey to do that. We're using swarms of agents to accelerate that journey significantly. And this comes to life through application of using agents to crawl through tens of thousands of engineering diagrams to extract unstructured information, engineering rules and formulas and things that then go into forming our new bill of materials that get loaded into the new system. I categorize in this as some of the SaaS disruption efforts that we're embarking on as well, where we're building using agentic programming, building our own technology, whereas historically we would have gone the buy route. We're now building that. We've got a handful of very core enterprise systems that are live, being used to drive production that are the result of agentic programming capabilities. Our S&OP demand planning software is one of those examples where last year, over the course of 6 months, we went through ripping out the old, building the new, and now it's a very live and real bit of software in our environment driving real value. The last proof point I've got in this setup is what we call Cora. So Cora is a multi-agentic AI solution that is augmenting and enhancing our customer experience and service teams to better serve the customer. Cora has a orchestrator agent at the top of it, 8 children or sub-agents underneath of it that then all have access to over 15 different systems and tools, where historically this would have been a human having to navigate all that complexity and the challenges and tendencies around errors and inaccuracies of trying to navigate all that. Now they engage Cora and the orchestrator agent at the top. And I'm trying to stay away from referring to Cora as a she. That's my attempt to not anthropomorphize here, but it's hard to do. So Cora then handles that complexity. It's resulting in significant improvement in efficiencies in terms of how we measure at Pella, reducing average handle time of customer engagement, those calls by somewhere between 40 and 50%, and netting out to have a significant impact on customer experience. So it's been a big win. The other nuance I'll emphasize with Cora is Cora was the result of a 3-day hackathon where the team went from 0 to 1. We used AI to help design Cora, and then used AI to build Cora, and then launched it into production over the course of 3 days. We're at roughly the 6-month mark now of Cora being live and driving real impact to the organization. So again, 3 proof points kind of setting us up. This carries us then into strategy and anchoring on what's informing our strategic decisions around AI at Pella now and where we're going with this. And it really starts around the idea of intelligence. Ultimately, intelligence is emergent from information. Information is the most abundant resource in existence. From the smallest of small to the largest of large, it's information is ultimately what this all is. Human beings, we are, this is a reductionist view, but nothing more than information processing systems, right? We have very strong senses that take in information of the world. We process it and generally put it out into the world as some form of intelligence. That's what all of this comes down to, is how do we process information to drive intelligence? And there's a great quote on this that I anchor on from Demis Hassabis. Demis is one of the co-founders of Google DeepMind. It's the group that's building Gemini. They built AlphaFold, which a number of years ago won a Nobel Prize in biology for applications of AI to protein folding. The quote on the screen is that a machine that can navigate an infinity of data will be infinite in its reach. I think it's a beautiful quote, a simple quote, but really captures well. All of this comes back to information and the ability to process information. So it takes us into then this framing of, as information processing continues to advance, so does AI capabilities. There's a great forecast that I go to on this that comes from an AI nonprofit research group called the AI Futures Project. And this group, why I'm drawn to what they put out is because of the breadth and depth of the forecast that they create and the transparency behind it. So I like to encourage everyone at some point to use your flavor of AI, chatbot, open Chat GPT, Claude, Gemini, whatever it is, and go dig deeper on this particular forecast from the AI Futures Project. Again, it's very transparent. They account for capital flows coming into the space, advancements in algorithms and talent, and considerations for geopolitical environments and national security concerns, and accounting for pace of advancement in the energy grid capacity and compute capacity. And again, it's very broad and deep in what goes into this forecast. And it's a forecast is the emphasis. This is may not be right. There's a spectrum of believers on both sides of this, but it's a good anchor point for us. And the two parts I want to illustrate are up on the screen, these plots. And I start on the plot on the right. And so this plot is ultimately sourced from an AI benchmarking platform called Meter, which is METR. And Meter seeks to evaluate the task horizon capabilities of a given model. In other words, what they're looking for is that for some given task that may take a human, say, a week to accomplish at 80% accuracy or proficiency, they're looking to see can a given AI model accomplish that same task at the same level of proficiency in a moment's time. What else begins to emerge out of this is revealing the agentic capabilities, right? And again, an agent, simple definition, is an entity that's given a task, a target, or a reward. It's given tools to use, systems to access, and allowed to go and do work and execute on work, not much different than a human. And they also lean into the length of time, the horizon that agent can go and do work autonomously, right? From a minute to an hour to a day, week, month, into a year, and connect that length of time to some level of broad intelligence. Now, there's many different benchmarks out there. This is one of them, but I think it's a compelling one. And specifically, then the authors of this forecast tie the 1 year horizon as being significant as when once AI is able to truly operate for the equivalent of 1 year at some level of proficiency, that takes us from the plot on the right to the plot on the left, which is the achievement of fully agentic software development, right? And the definition here is that fully agentic software development is an agent, in whatever form that is, that can perform all functions of software development, from planning to design to build to deploy to support to maintain to debug and everything in between, essentially solving for the digital space, right? All digital content is at its core some form of code. Their call here is that by early to mid 2028, that will truly be solved, right? Now, you could argue we may be pacing faster than that in some instances. With what Anthropic is doing with Claude, it's been impressive, certainly, in terms of how quickly agentic software development is advancing. So that starts us in the bottom left. Move up that curve to the bottom right, and their call here is that by mid 2029, we achieve artificial superintelligence. That's a big, bold claim. Ultimately, that's what their forecast is getting at, is when is superintelligence achieved? Superintelligence being defined as AI that is 2 times better than the world's best human across any certain domain or capabilities, how they're defining it within this forecast. Midpoint, or their mean of the forecast is mid 2029. They've got a midpoint in the forecast of early 2030s, and then there's a tail that goes out to the 2030s of when they expect superintelligence to be achieved. And I'd argue that my position on it is general intelligence, superintelligence will be achieved at some point. We're seeming to prove more and more that intelligence may not be nothing more than truly information processing and the mechanisms that go into processing that information and putting action to it out into the world, right? I step back one milestone, then the last point on this is significant. It's the call on the superintelligent researcher. The term for this milestone is the takeoff. And so, in other words, this is when AI is able to self-improve, recursively self-improve, research better algorithms, better methods, train itself on that, deploy it out into the world. And once that's able to be done, it's a quick jump from that to superintelligence is the expectation. So Um, the other two things I'll kind of inject in here as well for what it's worth is there's a great book I recommend. It's called The Infinity Machine. It's essentially a biography of DeepMind, Demis Hassabis, and so on. It's a great read, kind of illustrating some of the roadmap expectations that many on the vanguard of AI technology are pursuing. There's another great book called Deep Utopia by Nick Bostrom. That's a great illustration around the ideas of superintelligence and the state of potential abundance that might be a future state for us all as well. So, all right, so that takes us through kind of this grounding of expectations and the capabilities, emphasizing this as a forecast. The last bit I want to get into is then some frameworks around embracing of AI and the intelligence that we have now, knowing it's only going to get better. And the framework for this is one of a factory. And so, at Pella, we manufacture windows and doors. We have physical factories that have saws and glass cutters and autonomous vehicles and computer vision and all of these bits of equipment and tools that go into producing good quality windows and doors for our customers and people that are operating the factories. That's the framework from an agentic standpoint I'm going to articulate here is you've got this factory of tools and systems at the core of producing good quality agentic outcomes. We've got a curated group of agents that are operating the factory and then the consumers of it as well. And so I'll step through and unpack all of these a bit as we go forward. The other element, though, I want to land on that's part of this factory, and it's critical here, it's our culture, it's our people, and the culture around experimentation. The ability to foster uh, uh, a group of people, enable a group of people that they got the guardrails and tools where they can go fast and break things, but do so within main or minimizing the blast radius is the framing on this is super powerful. And the inspiration for this comes from SpaceX. This is the one I like to use. SpaceX was built upon this, built upon pushing the boundaries of engineering and science, failing quickly to learn as fast as they can. And I think what's on the screen is a great illustration of that. These are the three Raptor engines from SpaceX, Raptor 1, 2, and 3. What's most immediately evident is how simple and beautiful Raptor 3 is. And SpaceX got to this not through careful planning and designing out the risks. They got to Raptor 3, which is, again, the most powerful rocket engine in the world for its size. It's the most performant of the three, cost the least to produce, cost the least to operate. But they got here through rapid iteration, through building it, launching it and blowing it up over and over and over again, right? The experimentation is so critical to AI success in the organization. It's fostering that ecosystem. And at its core, it comes down to AI is a probabilistic technology. And most of the time, you don't know what the outcome is going to be until you can build it and see it and react to it and refine the outcome, right? And so that's, I think, fundamentally a mind shift change that has been occurring at Pella is our willingness to accept that experimentation and that unknown and to push into that space and enabling our people to do so as well. So diving through this factory concept, quick illustration at a high level, this captures it. So in the factory, you've got the ability to observe what agents exist, what they're doing, to be able to see how reasoning is happening. It's a space of AI research in itself called mechanistic interpretability, looking at how decisions and how the actual LLM is functioning. You've got in here structures for system access and single sign-on and data access and security, and generally the governance and guardrails being stood up in this factory to ensure safe, trusted, quality outcomes, right? We've formed at Pella Agentic AI Foundation team that is focused on building the components of this factory. A couple areas I want to go deeper into on the factory side of this is first context. So all intelligence needs context of domain, of breadth and depth of a domain to be able to generate expertise, right? AI is the same thing. So this factory, the structure needs to be able to give access to context, to data that can inform the AI of how to be an expert and how to take expert actions, trusted actions. My example of this that I like to go to comes from NFL Thursday Night Football. So this is Thursday Night Football. It's hosted by AWS. They have a version of this that's a next gen stats telecast. If you watch that, you get to see in real time them making predictions on the screen of everything from the simple probability the next play goes left, right, or down the middle to something much more challenging like predicting a blitz. And that's what's on the screen here is the AI making a prediction of a blitz right before the ball is snapped. You see a little red circle show up underneath that top defender on the top of the screen in the white uniform, the Denver Broncos, and that's them calling that person's going to blitz. And sure enough, he rushes across the line and makes a play. A blitz in football is an unexpected action by the defense meant to surprise the offense. Again, an anomaly. We see anomalies quite often throughout our manufacturing environments. The application is very real. The way Amazon goes about building the AI to be able to predict this is through context, is where it starts. And so the players on the field are all wearing IoT sensors and devices that are measuring orientation and acceleration and location on the field. The color commentators are commenting on the video, which is annotating the video. Um, uh, this is me tooting my horn a little bit, but I'll mention it here. My cousin is Brock Purdy, so I've had an interesting insight into some of the gear and equipment that they get to wear. Brock is the quarterback for the 49ers, so it's been interesting chatting with him a bit on the analytics and data they're getting out of every game. But the other element in here that's probably the most powerful is how they're extracting tribal knowledge. So Amazon has a roster of Hall of Fame coaches and players that they have watched game film and just stream their consciousness, their thoughts, um, and that's their extraction of tribal knowledge. And it's that data that's often so hard to capture, but so valuable to an AI to really understand the context of an environment. The sensors and video captures a lot of the hard data. The tribal knowledge fills in the cracks around. And this is very much the inspiration for what we brought to our agentic AI maintenance doctor, capturing both tribal knowledge off the shop floor, as well as the hard data from machine sensors and IoT devices that come together to make for a powerful agentic solution. The other part of this is governance. So we very much don't yet have a perfect answer for governing agentic AI, the proliferation, outside of knowing it's going to continue to increase the number of agents that exist across the enterprise. The simple framing, though, that we're building towards and through is this one of evaluating autonomy and scale against business criticality and risk, and then prescribing or assigning to each agent a progressive level of 0 to 4 that represents that balance of autonomy and scale and criticality and risk. And agents that are higher level agents get treated with greater scrutiny, greater review, greater cadence of review, and so on, just because it carries, again, risk and scale is much greater on those higher level agents, whereas the lower level agents, less risk, less scale. Typically, they're using already approved tools and systems and data. So that's where our enablement really comes to life, is on those lower level agents that are a bridge to higher level, more complex sort of agents that can emerge as well. So it's an important, critical part of the foundation is our governance structure here as well. So we've got the factory, the agentic operator. So this is very much the creation. Our agentic foundation team is creating these highly curated agents that are focused on validation of the outputs, orchestration of how a user can navigate this factory, safety and security, monitoring and managing cost and compute. And what's on the screen here, I think, is a great animation that illustrates this concept quite well. This is called Pixel Agent, but it's a visualization of a group of agents working together. And this is the exact concept that we continue to build at Pella. It's this ecosystem of agents working together, running this factory to produce good quality outputs. And I have to inject this into here because I think it's a critical point. One of the groups of agents is managing and monitoring cost and compute that we've got. And I think this is as important of a lens to bring to the dialogue on this. Is there's a extreme imbalance between supply of compute and demand of accessing that compute and intelligence. The framing I've got for this is there's roughly 20 gigawatts of AI energy available Right now, Anthropic's got access to roughly 2.5, OpenAI to roughly 2. We're continuing to work towards building more, but there's just most recently, I think it was a week or so ago in the Wall Street Journal, I read a recent article around certain communities pushing back on and canceling the planned build of AI data centers. Right now, the pace of growth gets us to roughly 200 gigawatts of AI energy by 2030, which is still magnitudes less than what's actually demanded. So all that is to say that supply and demand mechanics are going to continue to take hold, demand curve is going to shift out, and price is going to change. And as price changes, the risk becomes to how quickly and how aggressively do you inject agentic capabilities into business critical workflows. Right? You plug an agentic capability into your account payable and receivable process, and price changes dramatically. It's an important consideration in terms of the strategy that you take on where and when do and how aggressively do I want to inject agents into different parts of the business, knowing that this supply and demand of compute intelligence is going to continue to adjust prices as we go forward. So I like to emphasize it because it's a critical component of the journey that we're on at Pella and how we think about priority and where we're pursuing agentic agents to emerge in the business. And it gets us to the last part of this factory framework, which is the consumers, right? Those that are using the agents, bringing them into the business to consume and drive real value. And the simple thing I've got for this is ultimately we get to this concept of an agent registry. I refer to it more as a draft board because the target here is that eventually every function, business leader, a team leader, project manager, whoever it is going to be able to see the breadth of agents that are available in the business, confidently choose a selection of those agents to pull into the work that they're doing, the project team that they have, give that agent a target task to go and do, tools to use, hold the agent accountable to doing work, and really treat it as a team member. And starts with having good clarity and visibility of the agents that exist or the ability to go and build the new agents that exist. So this is an illustration of the current version of the agent registry that we've got. You see Cora, which I mentioned earlier, is in here. You can see the level of agent, its risk, some of what it has access to. This becomes a critical component to how the business consumes the agents to actually drive value to the organization as well. So that's what I have on my end. So Jason, I'll stop sharing and we can dig into some more Q&A.
All right. All right. Let's dig in. Yeah. So we've already gotten some great questions from the group. So keep them coming, everybody. I think we'll try to weave these in, during our discussion here. And before we address some of the questions that have come in from the audience, I think it would be interesting to kind of, take a step back and think about, what did the organizational look like before Pella took its first steps into enterprise grade AI? What were the structural and cultural conditions at the organization? Like, let's just call it our data and analytics operational baseline,
Yeah,
for a phrase. What were
yeah,
you working with when you first started trying to move AI from concept to deployment across a distributed manufacturing operation, a
yeah.
very
Great,
complex operation?
great question. I'll go back. So I've been at Pella for just over 6 years. When I joined Pella, we were on-prem databases. Some people had the towers underneath their desk yet in terms of where their own local little database and so on. And so from that to where we're at now, we're a multi-cloud environment. We've got strong connectivity and movement of data from our shop floor up through all layers into our cloud environment. And so we've gone through dramatic modernization just over the 6 years that I've been at Pella driving these efforts to ultimately the foundation here is data. It's access to data, access to information. Pella was born and still adheres to lean manufacturing principles, which historically focused on taking out waste, right? And that also meant that any additional transaction through the manufacturing process was seen as waste and get rid of it. Well, we've had an effort the last number of years to actually reintroduce sensors and the ability to capture data through into different areas of the manufacturing process that data provides rich context to an AI to actually be able to understand the environment and be effective at that point. So that's some of the changes. The other, I think, significant change has been in our people and how we've leaned more into true cross-functional teams and product teams coming together. So from a manufacturing standpoint, as the example is, we've built over the last 6 years a very robust, what we term intelligent operations environment. It's born out of the concepts of Industry 4.0 is at its root. But the result of it is teams that are blended of operational technology, engineering, IT, AI engineering, data science, data engineering coming together on the same team. And it's significantly accelerated our ability to build the data foundation, layer in the AI on top of it, understand the business requirements, and deliver those outcomes to the organization.
Okay, yeah. So talk a little bit more about the team. I got a question that just came in, just basically asking who are the employees building these agents, general workforce or AI specialists. So if you could maybe unpack that a little bit more, for the group.
Yeah, it's a blend of both.
Yeah.
And so I've been in a few different organizations over my career. The enterprise level for Pella does quite well and has built a strong muscle of setting the enterprise strategy clearly and then aligning initiatives and projects down through the levels to pursue that strategy, right? So governance structures in place, prioritization structures then to decide upon, yes, no to different efforts and different initiatives, and then allocate resources to go and deliver on those strategic outcomes. So through that process, we've got this balance then of um, the broad enterprise that are really driving the creation of agents to help in their day-to-day kind of function. So I've got someone on my team who owns our AI literacy and workforce enablement efforts that has been educating on Copilot usage. So Microsoft Copilot, we've got 97% adoption, something like 1,200 active users in our environment, which for Pella's size, and those that are actually not on the manufacturing floor, but are using the technology. That's a significant, 1,200 is that 97% mark for us. And so they are building agents that are accelerating how they do work and drive value. And then we've got another group, which is the projects that are seen as true differentiation or areas of innovation or more complicated that may not just be an agentic AI solution. So an example of this is we're doing a lot of work on the computer vision space. I have someone on my team who's got a PhD in mechanical engineering, computer vision, who's super expert in building the end-to-end solution in the computer vision space. And so that balance of very technically deep AI capability and then enabling our businesses, the environment that we're fostering at Pella.
Okay. All right. So, um, we a lot of the strategic guidance that we give is around workforce readiness. Um, and and so I guess maybe I'm curious, what were the key decisions that Pella's leadership made that you believe most directly enabled what you built? And were any of those decisions genuinely hard or unpopular, at the time? What was that sort of hump that you had to get over?
Yeah, yeah. We have at Pella benefited from some tailwinds, right? Um, in the sense that from a manufacturing perspective, the size of the available labor force in manufacturing is shrinking. And so there's a necessity tied to um, the need to bring technology into the equation to solve for some of these manufacturing challenges because I mean, the answer is you either gain labor force through immigration, through babies being born, or through technology are sort of the three solutions, right? And so technology is the most immediate available. And so that in itself has been a significant tailwind to there's no better alternative than to figuring this out with technology. And then as AI has blossomed much more over the last few years since 2022 when ChatGPT hit the scene, it's been a bit of a confluence of great events that have added to that momentum. Um, so that's it's part of the answer, I think, Jason, to the question there is we've benefited from that tailwind. Now from maybe some big challenges, our largest challenges have been strategically how do we allocate the resources and not get caught in the shiny object sort of sporadic shotgun approach to let's go and try to tackle everything, but building the structures around strategically identifying what projects and initiatives do we want to bring resources to that we believe are going to drive some greater value. That's born out of that structure that the enterprise has built around project prioritization. And yeah, I'd argue there's maybe not anything novel about the structure outside of we've been able to build a good muscle through repetition of executing on it has been a benefit for us.
So, what were the kind of going back to this change management, workforce readiness, these challenges, and thinking a little bit about, what failed before it succeeded. When you deployed pilots, what was the biggest source of friction to acceptance? Was it the tech itself, human trust, workflow change, organizational
Yeah,
governance? What are
yeah,
those friction points?
yeah. All those had some presence in terms of the challenges through deployment. I think what's been most common is demographic differences between acceptance. So the older cohort, those that have longer tenure, generally our observation tend to be a little reticent to accept it or change, right? There's nothing novel in that. And the earlier tenured career people typically are where we like to go to first and get them on board and build the evidence around, hey, there's something better here. And it brings in, those that are later in their career. That's been a common through line across the different deployments that we've seen as we've ultimately tried to you know, get the user base to grow in terms of the applications and solutions we're putting out into the organization. The other challenge that candidly we still don't have a perfect answer to, and I alluded to it with my football example, is tribal knowledge extraction. Right? Inevitably, you run into the idea and people wrestling with, am I just teaching this thing to do my job? And we go back and forth on trying to toe that line. And ultimately, our genuine intent at Pella, people talent is a cultural pillar of the organization. And we very much view our pursuit of AI and application as augmenting and enhancing the people that we have. And so building it so that it's a true partner in the environment where they can share information and get value out of AI, the tool. It's part of the strategy that we have, but getting people over that hump has not always been an easy task for us, certainly. So
Yes, yes. I mean, that's a very common theme, that we hear as well. So, okay, you're pulling on some really interesting threads here. Amongst all of those, what surprised you the most after deployment? Something you didn't anticipate when you started the journey.
it's a great question. I think what has surprised me the most is how quickly the momentum can build. Right. So I'll use our 97% adoption of Copilot. We actually had our initial deployment of users and licenses failed. We started off with 100 users. It went out. We had about 6 months, and it didn't land. It failed. And so we evaluated our delivery, re-engaged on building out an AI influencer network, communities of practice, putting more structure around that, re-engage the initial group of 100 a second time around 6 months later. Granted, the AI capabilities foundationally had advanced as well. That's been a big part of it. But once we re-engaged the second time around, it was a month and had doubled the user group. 6 months later, we were, 4 times the size. It's been exponential in terms of the pace of adoption once we get the flywheel going, which is surprising, right? Maybe less so now as I think about or get somewhat sensitized to how quick it's all changing broadly. So,
Yeah, yeah, totally. So, when you re-engaged, what did you do differently, like around the communities of practice and that structure?
so the biggest change was one, the person on my team that was tasked with spearheading that engagement was a different set of skills to really foster that education and connect with the people in a way that the prior set of people missed out on, right? And then putting in place, I think, a better structure around. Ultimately, we have the structure of what we call AI influencers, champions. However, we use the word influencer, but intentionally engaging one or two from each function and really owning the partnership with them to act and drive the adoption, be the vanguard of curiosity in their space. Because ultimately this comes down to it's context. And each function in the business has a different level of need and context that has to be conveyed to an agentic AI solution. And that influencer knows their part of the business the best, and one can activate the agent in their space and give it the right system prompt or whatever it is in a way that IT or a core team is going to miss out on. And two, then they become the catalyst in their space to educate others and motivate and cheerlead others to adopt it as well. So I mean, very much you could think of this proliferation as a tree structure. Started with our spearhead initial group of AI influencers, and they kept branching it off to more and more of their function. One one other example of this is we've got over 200 engineers in our organization that historically, I think, are challenged with accepting AI because it is probabilistic, right? They're very black and white. I'm not meaning to be stereotypical or anything like that in the sense of engineering. It's typically a tough group to break through because it's got to be this or it's got to be that. It's a binary, answer so often in engineering. But I've actually been one of the largest and most accepting group of adopters that this this tree branching effect has been great to see with them as we engaged a couple of key engineering influencers. They educated others, and I mean they are it's amazing how much they are using the technologies of agentic AI in the engineering space right now at Pella.
Who decides what context gets adopted?
So context in the sense of knowledge given to an AI.
Hmm.
Yeah. So this is um, we put this in the hands of those that are building. So those level 0 and 1 agents that typically they're using already approved technologies in our environment. It's either Azure, Microsoft, or Anthropic are the three big ones that we've got approved from an agentic AI standpoint. Um, they're accessing or putting data into already approved systems or environments or data lake, SQL servers, those sort of things. And they're the ones that are owning the knowledge that that agent accumulates and uses. Now, as they move from level 0 and 1 up to a higher level agent, a key transition point is the number of users. So you go from 1 or 2 users to 3, 5, 10, a much larger software application. Then we take it into architecture review board process, which is data security, cybersecurity, network infrastructure, those sort of things to have a deeper evaluation because the risk changes. Are they trying to access more than one database or system of data? Those sort of questions then get elevated as they try to bring that agent to a larger group of scale, autonomy, or business risk as well. Um, Initially,
Okay.
it's putting it in the hands of the builder is what we're intending to do.
Okay, so we have two questions here that you've been kind of talking through some of this in terms of the tree that you're growing, at Pella. I love that analogy. So kind of a two-pronged question here. What have you found successful for creating safety for experimentation while still holding teams accountable for outcomes? Okay, you kind of touched on some of this, but on the flip side of this, how are you evaluating your agentic systems, both before they go out the door as well as ongoing maintenance monitoring?
Yeah, good question. So, um, from the experimentation side, the first part of the question, we really lean into the business function owns the budget, the pursuit of value, the business case, and so on, right? The technology is an enabler of what they're trying to deliver. So if they've identified a particular project, a particular, initiative that they've scoped and is going to drive some value, the power with AI is that the cost to build the prototype, to create something, continues to go down. Whereas historically, right, it take a team of people, many developers, weeks, months of effort. Now you can build a prototype very quickly and at relatively lower cost. And so the solution, or the side of the decision on which projects to go after, the value of it is on the business side. The Agentic AI Foundation team I alluded to earlier is focused on building the right guardrails so that they can confidently access the agents that we have, or build a new agent to try to deliver on that business outcome. Um, and then through that, we've got transparency into the level of agent, the risk of it. I had that matrix up earlier that I alluded to as well. So that's
Mm.
very much lives on the business side, the accountability and the value of it. From a evaluation standpoint, and we continue to evolve how we evaluate agent quality. We have our own mechanisms around red teaming, expert feedback into it. We've set up some agentic monitoring as well to try to evaluate and score outputs of agents. We still have human in the loop at critical junctures. So on our software development side, we've got a very mature, robust CI/CD process, software development lifecycle. The maturity is there so that before any code gets into production, it is reviewed by a human senior level, a software developer typically is what it is. And so that human in the loop is still a big component of um, the environment and ensuring quality and safety through all this as well.
Okay. All right. So, to no surprise, the group is very interested in the metrics that you're using to track productivity, and if you're seeing any positive ROI in any of the use cases, that are affecting you directly in the P&L of the company. So, yeah, metrics. In particular, what metrics are you tracking to gauge whether you are becoming more productive and not just generating AI activity? This is attention that we're seeing throughout our client base, and yeah, ROI.
Yeah. So a couple thoughts on this. Software development side, the metrics that we're leaning into right now are really focused on how is the bottleneck moving further down the development value stream. That's how I'll frame it, right? Historically, it might have been on developers, take a while, take forever, however you want to frame it, to actually build something. Well, now, we've got real examples as we track the development cycles of work that used to take 2 or 3 weeks being done in an afternoon by our developers, right? Well, the bottleneck is shifting out to our product owners, and how quickly can the product owners actually give requirements. And now we're seeing that shift into the business users that are able to actually state what they need and work with the product owners on that. And so that's coming to life through lines of code written, velocity, the typical sort of measurements around agile are part of that on the software development. And we're tracking to see where is that bottleneck continuing to shift towards, and challenging some of our typical traditional perspectives on, we typically would build an application for a human to have to click through and interface with. Well, what we're evolving into is the human has to do less and less as the agent's able to do more and more of the decision making or clicking through an application, those sort of things. And so how do we continue to remedy that bottleneck? That's the software development side. On the business side, where we're seeing the real application, or the real benefit comes out in like our maintenance doctor. So across the fleet, our machine uptime is increase 10 to 15% because of our maintenance doctor, as one example. So that's a key metric that's measured by the business. It's seen as value. Machine uptime, people, machine, material go directly into our ability to be on time for producing units for our customers. Machine uptime is up, um, follows through to on time completion, on-time shipment are key metrics that we're measuring in terms of the actual impact in the manufacturing side. Another big area is on what we measure as warranty claims. Um, are those changing as well as we get greater quality out of our manufacturing processes? And areas where AI has been directly deployed to our assembly lines and parts making areas have a direct through line to warranty claims that we're seeing significant benefit on. So we're measuring those real impacts coming out of manufacturing in this example that are tied to the AI deployments that we put out there.
So in a minute or two, how are you thinking? Talked about this a little bit, but how are you thinking about talent from the shift from traditional predictive analytics work towards more agentic development? I mean, what is that kind of roadmap looking like for you guys as we begin to move into 2027 and not too
Yeah.
soon?
Yeah. So talent, no one has the answer on this by any means. We're continuing to reflect and wrestle with this. I do think what continues to evolve, it's it's people that are system thinkers. They have a willingness to experiment, to learn new technologies, and ultimately, I think the skill set that becomes most critical is clarity of thought. Right? Can I clearly convey the target, the outcome that I'm trying to achieve, knowing that agentic AI is going to continue to abstract away more and more of the technical challenges that exist. And it really comes to can I articulate the ideas, the value to the organization, what the customer needs, and leverage the ecosystem of AI technologies to build. Um, how that evolves through the talent profile and so on, we still wrestle with that, but those traits of critical thinking, clarity of thought, I think are being elevated in significance in terms of anybody that comes into the organization or grows through the organization.
Great. Okay. JC, that was great stuff. Thank you so much for sharing your journey at Pella and kind of taking a deep dive with us in the challenges and successes that you're facing. I think everybody really appreciated the discussion. So again, if you're new to IIA and would like a free 30-minute consultation on challenges related to what we discussed today, follow the link in the chat to schedule that call. We will be sharing the recording of this webinar in an upcoming email, and it will also be available on our website. And please take 1 minute to give feedback on this session. It helps us develop timely and relevant content for the community. A box should have just popped up on your screen. And stay tuned on our email and social channels for tools and resources and other content to help you with AI challenges. A good place to start is our AI Strategy Resource Hub, which answers questions like how do we turn our AI ambition into business outcomes that leadership will recognize and support? How should we structure our teams and operating model? We talked about that today to accelerate AI across the enterprise. And how do we encourage responsible AI use across the workforce when familiarity and trust vary widely? The Hub has practitioner frameworks, exclusive roundtable peer insights, as well as key takeaways from real expert exchanges at IIA. All right, everybody. Great session. Onward and upward, and have a great rest of your day. Thank you. Bye bye.